Hey guys, here's this month's classic recast because Ed and I are taking a break this week. This is an episode we recorded back in season 5, episode 59, a really interesting discussion with famed, noted, legendary author Chris Baker, who wrote a really great book called A History of Thailand, which has been around for a long time and is oft consulted by people who want to learn more about the country and the history of the country in a very accessible but still cerebral way. Now, if you're anything like me and you read some of the journals and some of the websites of some of these sort of literary or cultural or historical organizations like the Siam Society, which I'm a member of, you see Chris Baker's name all over the place, as well as his wife, who work together and they do all kinds of Thai translations and, article publishing, and they've written many books and things like that. So they're sort of near the top of the pile when it comes to smart people who are writing about understanding Thailand from a deeper cultural perspective. So really great conversation with Chris. We were happy to sit down with him a few years back and chat, and everything he said is still relevant today. So hope you enjoy. On this episode, we sit down with Chris Baker, author of A History of Thailand.
So, if you want to learn more about Thailand's past, present, and future from a true Thailand expert, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to hunt some rare cephalopod fossils in the thick jungles of northern Thailand, but ended up finding my treasure on the cement sidewalks of Siam Square.
And I am Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 21 years ago, fell in love with the exhilarating but grim satisfaction of killing mosquitoes with a bug zapper while I lie in bed at night, so I never left.
Cathartic.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a whole bunch of cool stuff, including our ad-free regular show a day early, emails with behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world, and various other goodies. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about how absolutely insanely hot it's been in Bangkok over the past few days, how some million-year-old seashells ended up in the sidewalks at Siam Square, and that enviable problem that I find myself with as I face down 3 weeks of paid vacation, but have yet to decide what to do. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
Right, and as always, if you have something to say or a show idea or a joke or just want to say hi, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that we'll play on the show. And hey, before we get into it, Ed, I don't think you've seen this, but I want to read an email that was sent to us by two of our listeners, Mark and Jackie. This is really nice to get. Check this out. It says, Dear Bangkok Podcast, we are British expats living in Dubai for the last 28 years. We started listening to your show 5 years ago, around the time we decided to buy a house and aim to move to Hua Hin. Your show became a Friday-long dog walk listening routine for us. Attached is a photo of our last dog walk in Dubai, us leaving day one quarantine to our house in Hua Hin on Wednesday, and our first Saturday long dog walk in Hua Hin. Thanks for all the entertainment and knowledge, Mark and Jackie. Isn't that cool?
Wow, awesome to Mark and Jackie for moving to Hua Hin.
Yeah, man, 28 years in Dubai. I mean, they get the Joe Cummings level expat merit badge.
Yeah, good for them for lasting that long in Dubai. A lot of people wouldn't be able to handle it.
I think, like a lot of people say that about Bangkok too. Like, neither place is for everyone.
Right.
All right. Well, this episode actually came about after a listener named Jan gave us an introduction, and we are very excited to be sitting down with a fellow by the name of Chris Baker. Now, if you've done any reading at all on Thailand, you've probably come across his name at some point or another. Along with his wife, Dr. Pasut Pongpaichit, Chris has co-authored several books on Thai politics, history, and economics, and one of them, called A History of Thailand, is seen as sort of the gold standard of scholarly yet accessible books on, Thai history. It's about to go into its 4th printing, which will give you some idea of its enduring popularity and include some major updates and commentary on current events. So Chris generously sat down with Ed and I to talk about the updated version of his book, the story of how he came to Thailand as an idealistic young punk, much like we did, Ed, and his thoughts on Thailand as it stands today and what it might look like a bit down the road. So here is our awesome conversation with author Chris Baker. Well, we are sitting down here with a man that I have been happy to say that I have read his work, a noted author and scholar, Mr. Chris Baker. Chris, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Chris is one of several, what I would say, I would call them expat legends, giants of the expat world in Thailand, because when I first got here in 2000 and I was a completely lost soul and really knew nothing about Thailand, I went to a bookstore on Sukhumvit and I grabbed a copy of Lonely Planet and I grabbed a copy of A History of Thailand by Chris Baker and his wife. So I feel like I know you, even though I don't, but I can say that I've read several of his books.
Yeah, I've only read the one, and that's the one we're going to be talking most about today. But first, can you give us a little bit of an idea of how you came to Thailand? How you've been here a long, long time. You're one of the OG expats. So give us the story.
Okay. I was teaching history in Cambridge University in the 1970s, and this rather lovely young lady turned up there to do a PhD in economics. And in fact, she was there for 5 years, and I met her about 2 weeks before she was due to leave, which was a rather exciting 2 weeks. Anyway, after a long story, we got married, and then I left Cambridge and came here, and that was in 1980. And I went to work in business first. I worked in a research company. I worked in a advertising agency, which was actually in this very building where we are now.
Oh, wow.
And then I worked at selling whiskey, selling alcohol. And then I lost my job in the 1997 crisis, partly because the company I was working for internationally got bought out by a rival. So I got a bit of a payoff and decided at that point that I didn't really want to go back to working in business anymore.
Was the payoff in whiskey?
No, actually, it was in shares, but you had to wait for a couple of years. But then actually they did rather well.
Oh,
so
good,
it was
good.
it was quite good because apart from that, because all of my other savings at that point had halved in value because they were in baht.
Oh, because of the crisis, right?
1997. Sure. But anyway, It worked out.
So your wife was working as an academic during this time?
Yes, she went. She was employed by Chulalongkorn University. She'd been there before she went to Cambridge and came back and has been there ever since and is actually just retiring right at the moment. Yes.
Oh, fascinating. So actually you more or less followed your wife so she could pursue her career, and then you were just kind of making do with these office jobs.
Yes, I mean, I decided to come here and decided to sort of jump off the cliff. And when I think back, it's very difficult to imagine how I did it. You had this sort of secure job in this wonderful university in Cambridge, and you can continue. And you went off and came here and worked in a shop house in Sukhumvit.
Well, the things we do for love, right?
Yes, exactly. And I not once regretted. But
that's great. That's actually quite romantic story. But just to be clear, but before you came here or before you met your wife, you had no background or education in Thailand or Thai language or anything?
No, but I had done my PhD about Indian history.
Okay.
I came out to Asia first time. I did what is now called a gap year, right? But then it was unheard of,
right?
But I took off from UK with £100 in my pocket, and I finished up in India and in Nepal, and had a fantastic time. Decided from there I wanted to study it and went back and did my PhD about Indian history. So
that's fascinating. I had no idea. So you started out as a scholar. Now focusing on Indian and Nepalese history.
Indian history.
Indian history.
Indian
okay.
history. Yes, that's right. But I knew very little about Thailand at that time until I met my wife. Very, very little indeed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you came here. You both had office jobs, but then you decided to just write a book on Thailand.
we first wrote an article about it, and then we expanded it into a book called Thailand Economy and Politics, and then into a shorter sort of pop book called Thailand's Boom and Bust.
Right, so I have that book on my shelf.
That's how we got started.
I have that book on my shelf. So I've got a couple thoughts. There's a lot of old idioms about not working with your significant other, but obviously you guys have made it work. Is there? It just happened kind of organically, and.
Yes, we didn't sort of plan it. You start doing it, and then obviously you get better about it. But the trick is that we argue all the time.
Okay.
and I also think that when we wrote the first book, we wrote most of it, we were both working, so we wrote it in weekends, and mostly in a house in Chatham, which was owned by one of the companies that someone knew. So we would drive down the weekend with a couple of computers and sit, and we'd work for the weekend. And we'd spend our time walking back and down the beach, arguing like hell, every point shouting. And we thought, there must be people who watch this, I think this is, the marital spat of all time. And then they come back and do it again next week.
Well, little did they know that was a successful marriage. They're like, yes. That's it. That's the key.
Because what we got good at is you can really, let yourself out on the academic. And then at the end you say, well, who's cooking the dinner?
This
we got
great.
very good at arguing. That's really.
Okay, my second thing I was wondering is there, I think a first impression might be of you and your wife as a couple, because she's Thai and you're Western, that you will come in with different assumptions, or how has that evolved? Are you still the Westerner? Do you have a Western mindset compared to her? I'm just curious or are you both just kind of free thinkers?
No, yes, definitely. And obviously we've been doing it for a long time now, so we move closer to one another. So probably now the differences are much less than they were when we were beginning. When we were beginning, there was very, very marked. Differences on gender, and particularly on the issue of looking at it from a Western perspective and looking outside.
Right.
But you see, Pasuk had grown up here. Very Thai at that time. She was born in a village outside Bangkok, and then brought up in Bangkok. But then she got a scholarship and went and did her BA in Australia.
Okay.
And that was a big opening for her, because not only was it, getting into the Western mindset, what particularly took her was the kind of egalitarianism of Australia after living in this very hierarchical society here. Now, she really responded to that.
So she was somewhat Westernized, or at least...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Right. So now in the ensuing years, have you become Thai-ized? Has it gone the other way for you?
Have you swapped places now?
Yes. Well, some of our friends, when they introduce us, they say, well, he's now more Thai than her.
Right.
So it's a joke.
That's great.
So you mentioned that your first book, and then you did the second book, The Boom and Bust.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what we're going to talk most about today, and what I first came to know you through, was the history of Thailand. Mm-hmm. Talk about how that came to appear.
We were asked to write it. Cambridge University Press approached us and said, we want a book on the history of Thailand. Will you write it? And this was the time, this was just after, you see, I had lost the job in the 1997 crisis. And I'd started doing a lot more writing. And actually, particularly, this is when I sat down and learnt to read Thai. And I did it particularly by reading all the history books that I'd wanted to read over the last 20 years. So I had the chance then to sort of crush this all into a book for a Western audience. And on top of that, by this time, Pasuk had become quite famous in the sort of economics world, because she did work not on standard economics. She worked on corruption, the illegal economy, social movements, stuff like that, which got very popular. So she was getting invited places sort of all around the world. She didn't like going on her own, but as soon as I lost my job, she had someone to carry the bags. So I went round with her, and we had a terrific time. We went to Australia, we went to Japan, we went to Seattle, for these sort of 3 and 6 months things.
Incredible.
And she would, do what she would have a visiting job, and she would do that. And I'd get my visitor's card and go into the library. So the book was sort of written on the hoof around here.
I mean, you really are a fascinating team because you are the trained historian who's just really learning Thai language, but she's Thai and obviously masters the language, but also has an academic background. So there is an obvious synergy there.
Yes. We discovered there was a lot of synergy, which was very nice.
And so, did you find that you really had to lean on her for the Thai language? I mean, ever since I've been in Thailand, I do lean on Thai people a lot for when it comes to Thai language. Unfortunately, still today.
We can add Chris to the long list of people we've interviewed that speak Thai way better than us and embarrass us.
Well, I'm sure there's no doubt about that. But I mean, what was it like? How could you be reading these Thai history books written in Thai? That's not even modern Thai, right?
Oh, no. The stuff I was reading was histories written in the last 20 or 30 years.
I see, more
written
recent
by
stuff.
Thai historians.
I see.
Oh, that's easy.
And much easier. and then because I was doing that to learn Thai. And then when you do that, you read them, and in fact, you cheat. You tell yourself you can understand it when you can't. So then I started translating. So first one was to translate a history book called The Thai Village and the Thai Village Economy in the Past by Chatip Natsupa, a good friend of ours. So that translated it, and that was a very good way to improve my Thai as well as.
Sure.
Right. So when the book came out, A History of Thailand, I mean, it's kind of considered one of, if not the kind of gold standard of accessible Thai history tomes. What was the response like? And it was a great success, or did it take some time to pick up steam?
No, it was a slow success. I mean, it took some time for it to be established that it was, accepted, and it lasted for some time.
To me, it's a great mix of kind of scholarly research, but it's quite accessible. It's a fairly easy read. It's not a difficult read.
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, there's two things. I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, one, we didn't want to write the sort of standard history where you write about the kings and the politicians alone. So the book is very much a social history. I mean, it tells the story of how the people got here.
Right.
How there was a land frontier and how the peasant economy was there, how all the urban people and stuff came from China. So it tells that story.
Right.
And that was one part. But the second part is that when in this period of working in business, one of the chunks of that was working for an advertising agency. And that taught me about communication. It taught me, academics don't think they like what they write. They don't think about it being consumed from the other end at all. But I'd learned, I'd been sitting, watched how people think about creating advertising and also how it is consumed, and it's purely. So as I put quite a lot of technique, some of it's natural writing, but quite a lot of it's technique as well to make it accessible.
That's interesting because when you say translation, a lot of people, most people assume it's just like from language A to language B, but there's also translation within the language. I used to work for a big tech company, and part of my job was translating the things that the ultra nerds wrote, the computer geeks wrote, for the regulars who might not, who barely know how to set up an Outlook meeting, And the nerds would be like, well, it's very clear. It's all written out here. And I'm like, no. You've got to massage the language a little bit. You're a nerd, and not everyone understands what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some very simple things about writing prose, length of the sentences, and how much you cut them up, and even about typography. If you can avoid, funny symbols and everything else, it's much easier to read. And your eyes don't get so tired. I mean, it's a lot of technique which most people don't study.
Yeah, and a lot of context as well.
Yeah,
sure. I want to get back to this question of your kind of role as the Westerner, and this is something that Greg and I have to worry about on the podcast since we're two white guys. And we don't want to be the white guys who act like experts on Thailand. This is a big problem in the expat communities. You get guys here 2 weeks, and they're lecturing Thai people about, you should do this, you should do that.
Right.
Now, your situation is different because you're literally have a PhD or you're a historian. What is this ever something you worried about? It's also different because your wife is Thai, but did you ever worry about being the white guy teaching Thai people about Thailand?
Yes, I mean, obviously, yes. But the check there was that the first reader of everything I'm writing is Pasuk. So you've got a check absolutely there. And in the same way, I was working as a check on her with stuff that she is writing in English for an international audience as well. So it was a very productive team in that sense. Yeah.
No, it's something I think about a lot because at my university, I'm normally teaching about the West, but sometimes there's something happening in Thailand which is so relevant, I can't not talk about it.
Yeah.
But anytime I'm talking about Thai stuff, I just feel odd, being a foreigner and standing in front, and there's all these Thai people, and I'm talking to them about Thai stuff. But we also have a right to do it. I mean, a Thai person could teach a class in American politics. Why not?
Yeah, that's right. And we got particularly concerned over this because after a time we translated History of Thailand into Thai. And it took some time because these things do take time. We didn't complete it until 2017.
Oh, I didn't know that.
On the third edition. Pasuk did the translation, the first round. And I can't do the first round, but I can edit. I can't write Thai very well, but I can edit all right. So, and it edited it to have something of the same feel of the English one. Then it came out, and it was launched by Matichon, the big newspaper group. And it was launched at the book fair. We had actually been in Japan at that time. We came back in the middle of the book fair for a launch event. We came to their booth, and they had all of their books and their bestsellers, and there we were at number 1.
Oh, wow.
And this is the biggest, serious publisher in Thailand at the big book fair.
Right.
And you could blow me down. Oh, absolutely blow me down. And they did a big launch event there. The room was absolutely packed. We sat answering questions for hours, and then there was a long line of people signing books.
Wow, that's great.
I just couldn't believe it, because when we did the translation, we decided partly from laziness, we'll change nothing. We won't say this is good for the Farang and this is good for the Thai. We translated the whole thing straight, not changing.
Oh, that's great.
A word.
And it's been popular among the Thai audience.
We printed 10 times in 2 years.
Oh,
that's great.
Still very, very popular indeed. But the trick was, and we didn't realize at the time, but the publisher, Matichon, did, this youth upsurge that we have seen had already started underneath. So there was this demand from the kids to know a story which is not being told to them by the standard history books
which is not propaganda,
they get at school and even at university.
Holy moly, is that ever a good segue into what we wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
Right.
So we got invited to go and talk here and there, and it was amazing, quite amazing.
Well, Ed and I were discussing this just before we met today. So we were talking about the current landscape, the current situation, and we were wondering what you thought on that. You want to?
Yeah, well, there's this question of everyone. And honestly, this happened even when I was here in 2000. I went to a seminar, and this was the Thai government wanted ideas about how to improve Thai education. And I feel like this is something that is just constantly talked about. It's almost the way they always talk about how they're going to solve the flooding problem next year.
Or traffic.
They're always talking about it. And there's always plans and agendas, and they hire consultants. And it really seems like something's going to get done. I mean, but then it never does. I feel that currently there is a debate about, and I think it is really, I think it focuses on Thai history or the way Thai history is taught. And the worry is that, of course, some standard history books are very nationalistic or more akin to propaganda. But then maybe possibly some other books they're worried are feeding Thai people, I don't know what, Western ideas.
Crazy Farang ideas.
Yeah, it's a classic problem. There's battles in Texas over textbooks. And how does this debate affect you at all? I mean, is your book ever used in schools? Do you know?
Oh, I shouldn't think so. I doubt it very much. Yes. The thing is that the Thai schooling system is designed for socialization rather than education. It's to produce a particular type of, if you like, obedient citizen.
Okay, but they don't say that. What I'm saying is since I've been here, they keep saying we need to teach our kids to think for themselves. They say that all the time.
I know, but they never do it. They don't really mean it because
then when the kids do think for themselves.
If you've ever gone into the Ministry of Education and talked to the people in there, had the experience of doing a couple of projects which involved me, and you talk to the people who are in there, then you realize they have a very, very narrow mindset. They are convinced, that this hierarchical society of which they are a major part has to be maintained. And the way to do that is through the schooling system. So however much they talk about reform, and you're right, I have seen many thousands of these reform schemes. They never work because they will not let go. In the end, they will not let go. Yeah.
So this current sort of protest movement now that's sort of on hiatus, I guess. I mean, COVID came along and kind of derailed a lot of things, including the protests that were getting quite large and quite vociferous. Is this different now?
Oh, yes, this is very different. And this comes from this generation of kids growing up with this device in their hand, which frees them from the channels of information that they've had in the past, where you only had your parents or your teachers talking to you,
right?
Or you had the media here, particularly electronic media, which were very closely controlled by the government and still very are. And you suddenly have this thing in your hand where you can search and you can find and you can communicate also with other people. And this totally and utterly changes things. So these kids who came out on the streets a couple of years ago just are so different. And I went to look at some of these demonstrations, but watch many more of them on television. The most striking thing about them was how many of the people there were very young, were school kids.
Absolutely.
And how many of them were female.
How many were women?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was, a rebellion against this kind of socialization, this control, this hierarchy, but also against the gender bias as well. These women who won't take it anymore.
Interesting.
Wow, that's an interesting element I never
strong.
really saw.
I was surprised. I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but I was surprised in 2014 how much of the anti-Yingluck stuff was very chauvinist and mean-spirited, just criticizing her as a woman with some horrible Thai words.
I was sitting being interviewed by, I think, not CNN, but some American television company in front by the side of one of the protests against Yingluck, and it was going on in the background. And I suddenly stopped because they were talking. So I was listening with one ear, and this man up on the stage had just called on people in the audience to go out and go to her house and rape her.
Right.
Literally.
Lord.
Right, I know.
And I can't believe this is being said.
You were thinking, luckily most people won't understand what they said. But
Jesus.
No, it was very
terrible.
misogynistic, horrible
Awful,
misogyny.
awful. Yes.
Really, like the worst words you can imagine on huge signs. Like they're not being shy about it at all.
Yeah.
I've never thought about this before. I mean, when I think about pictures back of the big protests in the 90s and the 70s, I guess there weren't, all the protest leaders were mostly men.
Mostly men.
It was a different time. But
Yes, but in the 1973, 76, there's a lot of women in the mass protests, but almost all of the leaders were men, right? And this whole big gender bias in Thai politics, it's still very, very strong indeed. You think about it, there's still only it's never been more than 12 or 15% of MPs have ever been female, which is incredibly low. And it's such a contrast to the very strong position that women have in business and throughout the rest of the society.
Oh, for sure.
But politics is different.
Yeah, you're right. Politics is different. I always feel, Greg and I are always talking about how we feel every Thai woman we know has her own business or an online thing. Yeah. And then I go into many offices where I feel like it's all women. I honestly want to know, where are the men? Yeah. It's like it's all women doing the work. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I got to say, man, the company I work for now is about, it's founded by a woman. It's managed by women. It's made up mostly of women, and it is awesome. I think it's about time.
But you're right. In politics, it hasn't been that way. There has been this,
right.
and that was part of the backlash against Yingluck. Part of it.
Yes,
obviously, there's a whole other angle to it. But yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the new edition of the book. Your book, A History of Thailand, is just about to come out with a 4th edition. Mm-hmm. What's new in this one, and how did that come together?
Well, we had updated it twice before, but they were just kind of, to keep it going. We just added bits on the end. So, But when about 3 years ago or so, and we thought we wouldn't update it anymore. After all, it's now over 10 years old. We thought, oh, it's had it now. But then in this incredible politics of the last 10 years, we thought, why don't we try again? Why don't we, rewrite this ending bit, the period more or less from 2004, 2005 to the present day? Why don't we scrap all the bit which we'd written about this in the past and write it all again from scratch and write it as one piece? And that was the idea. So we proposed that to the publisher, and they said yes. And we started on it. And then COVID came, so it got delayed for a year during that. But then we rewrote it, and it's a sort of story of a slow motion train wreck. It's a very sad story,
sure,
because it starts off by pointing out that if you go back to the millennium, Thailand at that time was vaunted as the most liberal and democratic country in Southeast Asia. It had a wonderful media. It had terrific civil society. It had recently had this new constitution, new politics coming out, mass politics beginning to get started.
Right.
And it was very much a hero country at that time. And you look now, you see, when the country is almost, it's got the brakes on, it's going backwards, the economy is failing, it's at the bottom of
right.
every single, on every, the world justice, the transparency, international, you go down.
Right, that's right.
It's just terrible.
Yes.
So we wanted to, write that story as one piece, this rather sad time of decline.
Well, I'm very excited to read it, and I've learned a lot of lessons in Thailand. And as a professor, as a teacher, I like to bite the bullet and make predictions. It's just I like to do it, and I have many stories of being completely wrong. For example, just about 3 weeks ago, I was telling my world politics students that Russia would not invade Ukraine.
Holy moly!
I just that was about 3 weeks ago. but I think my biggest ever wrong call was I was teaching a political science class at Bangkok University, and there was a section in the class that was supposed to be Thai political history. So I taught the vicious cycle of Thai politics, and but this was in 2005, and Thaksin had just gotten reelected. And I explained, now that we've had 2 successive democratic elections, which really was the first time that ever happened in Thai history, I stood up there and said, the cycle is now broken.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, well done.
and then about a year later, I open up, get my Bangkok Post in the morning, and it's coup d'etat. So I've been burned many times. But I'm not going to ask you for any specific predictions, but you do feel that this generation is different. So because you've seen many waves, more waves than we have, so you're getting a different vibe from what's going on now than 92, 2006, 2014. You feel this is different?
Yes. I mean, I think partly it is the vicious cycle. Partly we have had this authoritarian reaction, and now there's a reaction against that reaction setting in. That's one part. But the generational thing really does make a difference to me. And it's not just the ambitions and aspirations of the young against, the old. It's more than that. If you look at the people all the people who run Thailand today, are people in their 60s and 70s, they grew up in the Cold War era here, when things were run, in a very different way.
Fighting communists in the jungle.
Where, you distrust the people, you distrust the Reds, you distrust anyone on the left, you honor the king, and so on and so forth. And very, very kind of narrow, right? And then you think about how much the country has changed since then. I mean, just in simple terms, per capita incomes, real incomes multiplied 3 times since that time.
Wow.
So, and okay, it did not very well distributed, but in the end, people have a lot more money, and that means they have different aspirations as well. And,
sure.
So you think about not only these kids, which we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years, but before that, the people who came out as the red shirts as well, they were saying, we've been kind of driven down all along. We've now got a bit of money, but what we face always is barriers against, our ability to develop ourselves, to do the best for our family.
Sure.
There's a wonderful quote where, one of them says, you people in the elite, you don't need elections. You've got what you want. Now, we need elections because we know that's how we get, in the end, what we want.
Interesting.
Sure.
Which is fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So these movements have come out. Now, obviously, at the moment, they are being repressed immensely successfully because this military government and their friends have rigged the system every which way.
Right, and I mean, it sounds like a horrible thing to say, but for them, COVID has been a good thing because COVID is an excuse to stop the large gatherings. And
yes, but they've done more than that. I mean, they've passed in the last few years a range of repressive laws, which are just quite extraordinary. I mean, not just the lèse-majesté law, which in its own way is pretty bad, but the Computer Crimes Act is far worse because it means, everybody uses a computer for everything. So now you can double everyone's sentence for any thought crime by having them on the Computer Crimes Act.
It's incredibly broad.
Well. It's terrible. And then on top of that, all of these vigilante and surveillance organizations that were set up in the Cold War and it kind of disappeared are now back again. So this government has invested huge amounts in this kind of surveillance and repression. So this is now being used to, keep a lid on all of these protests, but it's being done by brute force.
Sure.
I wanted to ask a question. Now, you've written previously, you wrote a book on the sufficiency economy, which was a sort of an economic theory popularized by King Rama IX. That's maybe a broad way to look at it. But I was sort of noodling this over my head the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but in Western countries, in Canada and America, you're taught that anyone can do anything. You can be anyone. You can rise from poverty to be a billionaire, to be a leader of industry. Does Thailand really have that sort of embedded thought process? Like, are people taught when they're younger that you can do anything, or are people just sort of taught to be happy with what they have and maybe make a bit extra on the side?
Well, you think about, after the last coup, General Prayut, one of the first things he did was come out with these 12 core values for the Thai people, which the kids had to recite every day in school. And those core values, if you in short term, are obey, 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 and obey. And there's absolutely no idea in the head of someone like him that people should be thought to think for their own, to rebel a bit, to protest against things No, you have to obey.
You can't really blame him, though, because he's an army man. He's a career military guy where you do not think for yourself.
But that's the mentality.
But he is saying this should be our social values for everyone, and we put it into the schools. And so you can see why the kids protest. Because
is the sufficiency economy still a goal or a practice by the Thai government? I remember hearing a lot about it 20 years ago. My
involvement was that I was asked to edit a report about it done for the UN. I mean, that's how I got involved in it and writing about it. Many people in the elite like the idea very much, and it sounds sort of nice and cuddly and warm. Feelings and aspirations of most of the ordinary people, that it never really became popular, and so it was, you're pushing water uphill.
Interesting. So then, I mean, as people have less kids and they're focused more on work and their careers, when you write the fifth version of the book, what do you think you're going to be writing about? I know it's hard to say. It's kind of an open question.
I hope we won't write a fifth version of the book. Yes, although there's been talk about this aging society and what has to change, very little has actually been done. So there is this problem that there is not proper pensions. There's not a proper system just simply for looking after people in their old age. And the ratio between people working and people not working is going to change very, very dramatically over the next few years. And of course, what has happened in many other societies is that you've gradually pushed up the retirement age, because people are fitter, and more healthy these days. You can do that because people can go on effectively working now for 5 or 6 or 7 years more than they could 20 years ago.
Right.
But the Thai government hasn't done that. Companies work their way around it, but the officialdom and so on has not taken this on at all. And there are plenty of good examples, particularly from Japan, which has experienced this already, about how to manage this. But this is another, exactly what you were talking about, an issue they've talked about and had consulted, but nothing much has happened.
Huh.
Right.
So we can add this to the list of ticking time bombs in Thailand, along with the rising sea level. Right.
It is absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the cover of the 4th edition of the book, you've mentioned that a few times. If it's okay with you, we'll maybe share a picture of that with our patrons, because we send photos out to our patrons. It's a great cover. It shows the Democracy Monument out sort of in the water, in the sea,
almost underwater, right?
As people stand on the beach and watch. I mean, there's a lot of subtext there. How did that come about?
Yes. Okay. Cambridge University Press in Australia. They're in Melbourne. They commissioned a design house in Australia to do the first cover. And they produced designs which were, they must have had good holidays in Thailand. So they were very touristy, they were floating markets and this sort of stuff. So we said, no. We don't want anything touristy. So then we went to a very good friend of ours, who's Kundang, who's Chat Vichai, who is the sort of mastermind of the Bangkok Art BAC.
Oh, BAC. Okay, sure.
BAC there. And he's a great collector of art too. So we asked him if he had some modern art, because the previous cover had a mural, had a 19th century mural from a Taiwan. So he said, we like the idea of have a painting, but let's have something very more modern. And he suddenly produced this extraordinary painting, which shows something that looks like Democracy Monument, but it's floating in the sea. And when you look at it closely, it's made up of seafood.
I see.
This is actually prawns and fish and all of these things. And we said, this is fabulous. And we sent it to luckily the publisher in Australia, they liked it too. They all thought it was good. And then they sent it back to the design house. And the design house then put this extraordinary frame on it with sort of lurid day glow colors. And it shouldn't work, but somehow it works very, very well indeed. And we have inside here somewhere, where is it? We got the artist to write up. He comes from Chonburi, which is a coastal fishing port, and he says he likes seafood one day, and he one day, just this image came into his head of it sitting there, and he thought, everyone wants democracy, he said, and everyone likes seafood. So he put these two things together, and then he put the beach in front of it with people on it, and there are people lying naked. If you look closely, there are people lying naked on the beach.
Oh my goodness!
And there are other people looking out to sea, but they're looking at the seafood, not at the naked bodies.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's just weird enough that it'll confuse people, so people won't know what to protest.
Yeah. Artist statement. Here we are. Yes. He says, one day when I was working on a painting and watching the news of a demonstration, this was just before the last coup, by chance a thought ran through my mind. Democracy is like food, good food which people like to eat. With that thought, a scene instantly popped into my head of the Democracy Monument floating in the sea. I sketched out the idea, but somehow didn't like the 4 wings of the monument. At that time, our Prime Minister happened to be a woman, Yingluck, whose nickname is Bull, meaning crab. That made me think of using sea creatures, prawn, shellfish, crab, fish, for wings on the monument and so on. It's marvelous.
It's great. It's a great cover.
So, Chris, as we're wrapping up here, I mean, this book is called A History of Thailand, the 4th edition. Are you optimistic about the future of Thailand?
Very mixed, very, very mixed indeed. But by profession, I'm an optimist because, I think why be anything else? But it's quite difficult, I think, in the current situation, in the situation in which this current power group have institutionalized their power so very, very strongly indeed. It's very hard to see something happening very quickly. On top of that, you then put the whole COVID thing, and now, of course, Ukraine and where that is going to go. It's very difficult to see how the Thai economy, which has declined so much in recent years, is going to get going enough to be an engine which can create new forms of prosperity and get things moving. Very, very difficult indeed. And I guess the other factor in that is how unequal the society has become. It's always been pretty unequal. But on top of the inequality in incomes, what is really striking in the last few years is the inequality in wealth. It's become very, very concentrated, and very few people now have very, very big wealth. And what the problem with that is, as we've seen many other parts of the world, those people will then invest in the kind of politics which keeps the people in power who will defend their wealth.
For sure, yeah.
And so that makes it very difficult. These things put together makes it very difficult to be optimistic. But on the other hand, I always think that you have to have faith in the mass of the people to be able to make their own future and to fight to make their future, and they generally tend to do so. And the mistake many people make here and everywhere is you project the future by taking the present and then a straight line into the future. But if you look backwards in Thailand, it's a zigzag, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you must remember that when you look forward.
Right.
So I think it's this country still has a capacity to generate surprise. Nobody really predicted Thaksin Shinawatra, that this man would suddenly come out and absolutely change anything. And nobody really, if you're going around 2005, predicted we were going back to an era of military politics.
Right.
So I don't think anyone can really predict right now what might happen. And given the number of variables at play now, including the situation of the monarchy, then all kinds of things can happen.
There's a title of your next book, The Future is a Zigzag. Chris, thanks so much for sitting down with us. It's a pleasure to meet you and talk with you. And when will this, I think by the time this episode comes out, your book will be on the shelves. When does it come out?
Well, they still haven't given me a date, but I think it will be either at the end of April or early May, about then.
Okay.
Yeah.
A History of Thailand, 4th edition.
Yeah.
It's well worth a read. And audience listeners, if you haven't read it, it's a fantastic, very accessible introduction to a history of Thailand, which is exactly what it is.
Very, very highly recommended.
Yeah. Chris, thanks again. And we hope to have you back on one day. We extend an open invitation. Whenever you want to come and talk about whatever, we're here for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Man, I got to say that was one of the most enjoyable interviews I've done. He is so easy to talk to, and he's just a wealth of information.
Yeah, no doubt. These old timers, man, like they all have the Joe Cummings expat badge of accomplishment, and there's just a wealth of information. Both in terms of from a global perspective and is sort of drilling down into Thailand too. I love talking to them because they're so fascinating, and guys like Chris, just like he's written books and he's got so much interesting stuff to say, and we all got to listen to guys like him.
You and I have joked about it before, but there's there's all different levels of expats. We've even had shows on it, but then there's just this like Yoda-like level,
right?
It's like we've joked before that they're not black belts; they're like red belts. They're like on another tier.
Yeah, right. And I should say too, like just because you've lived in Thailand for 21 years, like you and I have, like don't listen to us. Listen to guys like Chris.
That's right.
He's the real deal.
That's right.
Just because we've lived here doesn't make us an authority.
Yeah, it's just something cool about guys. I think Joe is in this category that they've managed to be scholarly. You know, that they've managed to have like legitimate kind of scholarly credentials while having a lot of real world experience as well.
Yeah.
Like just being normal people, you know, maybe have a Thai wife or just, they've just done a lot of stuff in Thailand, but then they also have like academic or scholarly credentials. You put that together and you get like guru level, you know?
Yeah. The type of person that I'd be really bitter and angry about if he wasn't so nice. So
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. On top of it, he's super nice and just very easy to talk to. Just you and I also have talked before about, it's not always easy to interview people. Our listeners, sometimes we actually interview people and we end up not using it just because some people it's kind of like pulling teeth, but then other people it's very conversational. It just seems to flow.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want, and we were lucky to get that with Chris. So Chris, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's great. And like we said, there's an open invite to come back on whenever to talk about whatever, because it would be a
for
pleasure.
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And his book, the 4th edition of the book is not available just yet as this show drops, but you can pre-order the paperback on Amazon and you can order the Kindle version right now. And we'll put the links for those things in our show notes. So if you're interested in that, just check those out.
Very cool. I'm literally going to do that because I think I either read the first or second edition, and it was about 15 years ago. So I'm due for a reread.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we all are, yeah. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And last time, Ed asked me what I thought about non-stop beach vendors, so this week it is my turn.
All right, hit me, man.
So, Ed, what do you think about this when you go out to a restaurant or something somewhere, or a beach or somewhere outdoors where you're going to be sitting for a little while, and they hand you that lemongrass bug spray, the mosquito spray? What's your reaction to that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so is it actually lemongrass? I don't even know what it is, but I think of it as just some herbal thing, like some herbal, like natural bug repellent. So that's what you're talking about?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's lemongrass. It reeks like lemongrass.
No, you're right. I never really put that together. I got to be honest. I'm just pretty skeptical of it. I always think of it as being like low rent or cheap, like they couldn't afford the real thing. To be honest, I mean the smell is not bad. I mean, if you think about insect repellent, like hardcore, like DEET kind of stuff, it doesn't smell good.
No,
right?
but you're saying you prefer that like Agent Orange DEET chemical stuff to.
I guess so. Yeah. I'm curious. This is an interesting thing. Like, does it actually work? Does the herbal or lemongrass stuff? If I want to see the studies, man, show me the evidence. Like, if it actually works, it does smell better than the sciencey stuff.
No, I love it. I think it works great. I mean, my feet must be full of delicious blood because whenever I go out and I don't put anything on, the bugs just go at my feet like crazy, like a smorgasbord. But that lemongrass stuff, I put it on quite liberally, and it works great for me.
And it works. All right. I got an open mind. Before you told me that, I would have been like a mild loathe, only because when I smell it or when they give me that stuff, I always wonder, like, are they cheaping out?
Right. You want like...
Is this just some local herbal thing? Is this some like local herbal thing that costs 10 baht?
Right. Whereas you'd be more happy with a can of Off that had like all these skull logos on the side, like...
Right. Give me the poison science.
Yeah, there is a limit to this stuff, though. It's like when someone gives me a salt crystal. It says, this is natural deodorant. You don't need any of the other stuff. I'm like, nope.
You're like, nope. I don't think so.
All right, cool.
Yeah, so I guess I'll put myself in the live with category, but I'll check it out. Maybe I'll give it another whirl. Maybe I'll become a love in the future. We'll see.
All right, cool.
A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Totally. And you can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show, or even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks for listening, everyone. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you back here next week. So no regular tag this week, but check this out. This edit was crazy complicated for some behind the scenes info. As our patrons know, Ed's track screwed up when we were recording. So while I was on vacation, Ed had to re-record his track based on the existing interview and my track. So I was able to edit that in to this conversation, as well as some bits and bobs. And if you have a really keen ear, you may have noticed that Ed laughing early in the show is a bit taken from later in the show where he was laughing. So I just copied and pasted that in. Ain't technology grand? Anyway, I'm out of here.